welcome, what's up everybody? Back with the British bastard who likes to talk about all things paranormal, whinge, whine, moan, complain, rant, the odd session every now and again, and I think today's going to be no exception, but it's just going to be more of a sort of a moral question and a moral talk as to life after death relating to this film, which I will explain briefly in the summarise of its plot. I'm not going to go too much into it, but if you want to know more about this film, then please do check it out right here, or it's still on Netflix and you can go watch it now if you like. The reason why I wanted to bring up this film, it's not a review per se because, you know, with the nature of this channel, but it does pose a really good question about the afterlife. So I'm just going to summarize it for you just really quickly. So without further ado, off we go.
Oh boy, where do we start with this?
So in the film, Dr. Thomas Harbour is a scientist who manages to discover that there is scientific proof of an afterlife through his machine, device and so on, and create his own little mansion sort of community where you have like pro-lifers and so on, give them purpose and so on, and just doing all he can to do more with the proof of life after death. And ever since broadcasting his findings to the world, you know, all over America, there's the start of the film where he's being interviewed and he's saying about his discovery and so on and sharing it with the world. But then the interviewer calls him out on it, saying, ever since finding out, yes, that there is an afterlife, that is brilliant. But then it causes suicides to skyrocket to 4 million.
What the actual fuck? I mean, seriously.
You have the doctor's son, Will, who's also in the film, who basically wants his dad to stop doing what he's doing because it's creating more chaos than, you know, you'd think. Finding the scientific proof of a life after life, that it would give people more of a hope and more of a sort of a sense of closure that they can go on to somewhere better possibly. But then the crux of it is it causes suicide rates to rocket massively, and he wants to tell people that even though, yes, he may have discovered this, that he needs to basically say that it's all made up and just to stop people from dying. Even though it is such a good thing, you know, with life after death, it's not really a good thing at the same time. And, you know, he meets this girl on the ferry, Isla, and she ends up becoming part of the mansion and everything, part of this little community that they got going on. But at the very start of the film, she tries to attempt to take her own life, which Will ends up saving her. The film is just nuts. It's not a particularly good film, but I do encourage you to watch it if you're interested in sort of like the afterlife and so on. It's not so much a paranormal based film, but it does pose the moral questions as to the afterlife and what would we do if we actually had proof of it. But here's the moral questions I'm going to present to you.
What are you going to do, a resurrection? This ain't the fucking New Testament, you know.
As I mentioned that he was doing an interview at the very start of this, but the interviewer points out that he only agreed to an interview after the suicide rates rocketed to 4 million people. That includes celebrities, just general public all over the world. Ever since his discovery, which he thought would be a really good thing, turns out is actually disastrous. So the interviewer goes on to state that this machine can basically read brain lengths of a subatomic level after the physical body has died. But if we are some kind of energy, you know, maybe our soul, energy, whatever you want to call it, has to go somewhere. We do not know that, you know, presently. We don't know of an afterlife 100%. But so we can only speculate. But it does bring up the first question here. Is there knowing that an afterlife is dangerous? The reason why I state that is because of the point of the film. It made me think about this question. That let's just say that there's scientific proof that comes out of nowhere that let's just say out of nowhere, heaven's confirmed, you know, it's confirmed that we see our loved ones and everything after we die. It's confirmed we have a healthier life, you know, we don't have ailments or whatever, and we see friends, you know, everything's perfect. You don't have to worry about money and things here in the physical world. And let's just say everything that I just said is confirmed when you die. What are the chances of people taking their own lives? It does pose the question, what would you do? You know, let's just say, you know, you've had hardships in your life and all your family, you know, you're maybe the only one of your family left. And let's just say your parents, brothers, sisters, whatever have died, you miss them so much and you were a family person, you really miss them. Then you find out that you can see them again. but all it takes is for you to be gone. You know, what are the chances? You know, I think it would cause suicide rates to skyrocket massively. So it does pose that moral question that, you know, people in the paranormal, you know, me and such, you know, I would love to know if there's an afterlife, but at the same time, after watching this film, it does make me think, do I really want to know? Because while this film is put on the basis that it does prove that there's an afterlife, it doesn't specifically prove that there is like spirits, ghosts, apparitions, entities, whatever you want to call them. It doesn't specifically prove that because, like I said, it's not a paranormal type film. So speaking in the context of the film, I think it would go the same way as the film. I think it'd be downright dangerous. You know, if people knew that there was something so much better than what we have here in the physical world, for me, suicide rates are likely. And I think it would be higher than 4 million. I think it would be a global pandemic, you know, especially since, you know, we got a global pandemic that's, you know, going on still, but I think this would be a whole different realm. So in a way, the people in the paranormal like me and so on are so determined to find, you know, the answers out through spirit communication sessions or whatever, or when people believe that there is a heaven or whatever, or an afterlife, or when maybe mediums tell you the same or whatever. Do we really want to know? Another question which did pose this in my mind. I was taking notes right the way through this film, and when I was you know, thinking about these sort of questions which I wanted to pose to you guys, so please feel free to put your comments down below. And one of the questions which was on here I came up with is that at the end of the film, it's not so much, you know, a spiritual afterlife, it's more an alternate reality at the end of the film. You know, it's a bit confusing, the ending, so you have to bear with me on this, but it's sort of like an alternate reality. So sort of you go back to like a similar sort of place, or maybe it's sort of a little bit like the butterfly effect, like the multiple Earth theory, that there's sort of a multiverse, that there's, you know, versions of you that have relived that timeline, but then every decision you make creates a different timeline, but you ultimately keep coming back to the same place, which is what happens to Will's character. You know, keeps going back to the ferry to meet Isla. So maybe he was there to stop her from killing herself, you know, but then eventually she stops her son from drowning, which is how like she ended up on the ferry in the first place, so on. It's all rather confusing, but it does make you think. When it talks a lot about consciousness, you know, and this machine plays through memories, and it plays through sort of different realities, or like different scenarios which maybe could have happened, you know, in somebody's lifetime. Could our consciousness create our own heaven? Since scientists are trying to prove that our consciousness does live on after we die, which they have proven that our consciousness does go on, you know, wavelengths are still going after we die, but they just don't know how long they go on for. You know, it's only what they can currently read now. So it makes me think, is there a possibility out there in the universe that through our consciousness, our vision of heaven, you know, let's just say my vision of heaven is that eventually I will see my dad again, I'll get to meet my grandparents, you know, I'll get to see friends who have passed on, you know, maybe pets, something like that, and I would have no worries, no physical ailments, no anxiety, depression, whatever. That would be like my ideal sort of heaven. So in a way, could our minds possibly create that same effect when we die? That maybe our souls or what have you, or our brains and our consciousness is so powerful that we can create our own sort of heavenly paradise, if you like? Is that a possibility? You know, could we create our own paradise in our minds to sort of protect our feelings, protect our brains, protect our emotions, to stop us from maybe imploding? There's also a part in the film where the Doctor is basically killed, and he's put into this machine and put into his own machine, and he's basically killed, and then he's going to be revived. So he puts himself into his machine to really see what happens after he dies, and then basically comes back to report on what he saw, because his son Will says that at the beginning of the film that he had a near-death experience. And he talks about his near-death experience, that he was dead for about a minute, but was revived, I think, and then he saw like a white light source, something, you know, and that got his father really intrigued into afterlife research. So puts himself into his machine. That it does make me think, would you kill yourself to be brought back to see what happened? So, I mean, if I could, I might take the risk of, you know, having myself be pronounced dead and having everything stopped, and then see where I go, only to be brought back a little while later, because there is even stories of people that have been brought back from being clinically dead for, 40 odd minutes. And even there's been stories, which I don't know if they're confirmed, people like waking up in morgues, days after they supposedly died and so on, things like that. I would actually think I might take the risk of being biologically dead to find out what happens. If I was guaranteed to be brought back, I think I would probably take that chance. But mind you, like I said, the only way that we're going to find out what happens in an afterlife, if there is one, is when it's my time. When my time's up, that's when I will find out what truly happens. In the end of the film, the doctor, Will's brother, who's also helping his father, with this machine and with the afterlife research and so on, proving the existence of the afterlife. But then they discover at the end of the film that it's sort of like an alternate reality in a way, that it's not so much a spiritual heaven that we think of, it's more sort of an alternate reality, like a multiverse sort of thing. And they keep referencing through the film about a plane of existence. And it does make me think, is the plane of existence going to be the same for everybody? Like, is my version of heaven going to be the same version of everybody else's heaven? Maybe our consciousness is so powerful that maybe when we die, we actually create our own sort of heavenly paradise. That might be a possibility. So it does make me think, is it going to be the same for everybody? Is everybody going to go in the same place, whether you believe heaven or hell or not? Not confirmed. So it does make me think, is it going to be the same for everybody? Or do we have to somehow consciously create our own paradise, maybe as a coping mechanism? Maybe if you're terminally ill and you get so close to dying that you try to stay positive by thinking about, where you're going to go and so on, and you maybe create your own paradise in your mind, which helps you like to cope with death. And then maybe your brain, even though your physical body has died, it might be your brain's sort of wavelengths or energy, whatever you want to call it, that actually takes you to that paradise inside your own subconscious. I don't know, it's a mental idea, but it's just fun to speculate like this. This machine is also in the film reference of how it basically records the afterlife, how he says to a whole group of people in this mansion that we're able to record what happens in the afterlife. We're able to record all we see. And there's a scene, where they take a body from a morgue, they take a cadaver and they take the dead body, they hook it up to a machine, and they can play through, the memories. Even though the physical body is gone, there's still wavelengths that are inside the brain, which maybe would stay in the film, that after death, that there is, I think the body was like 5 hours old in the film from what they said, and the brain still has some sort of wavelength, so they're able to tap into that. But this machine can basically replay through not the afterlife, but memories. And also talks about other realities. Like there's a part where the dead man, the cadaver, has a specific tattoo on his arm, which Isla notices, the girl. But the tattoo is actually different. It's how it was in the recording. And they think, why is that? And they come up with the realization that it could be an alternate reality. That this alternate reality is it takes you back to the same sort of spot, sort of like the butterfly effect again, but there's maybe different timelines which keep bringing you back here, but every kind of choice you make will lead you back to a specific point in time. It's bloody confusing. Watch the film, because it will probably make a bit more sense, or go watch that video like I said. So in the end, Will plugs himself into this machine and he goes back, to the point where he's on the ferry again. And he believes that he has to save Isla, that he has to save the girl from committing suicide. But I think every time he does, he keeps going back to the same point again and again and again and again and again on the ferry. No matter what he does, he keeps going back there. And I think there's a point where, like in the film, where she mentioned that her son drowned, and he actually ends up as a stranger saving her son in this alternate reality. And so by the way, this may be a little bit vague, I do apologize, but, saves her son, and then she goes on with her life, as complete strangers. Maybe that's exactly what he was meant to do. He was meant to do that, but, whilst he's in the machine, clinically, he dies. They're not able to revive him. You hear in the background that they're trying to revive him, but he ends up dying. But it does bring up these moral questions. Is the afterlife necessarily... Oh, hello. Okay, look. Do you want to come and say hi to the people? Look. So it does make me think. Mwah. I love this girl. So this is Little Akasha. It does make me think, you know, morally, is it right? If we fully 100% have proof, would it be wise to let everybody know? I mean, if it was 100% confirmed that, you know, heaven, from what people believe it could be, is exactly like that, like it's perfect, we see family again. So you've got to consider the pros and the cons. Yes, it'd be amazing. I don't know, there'd still probably be a need for spirit communication in a way. You know, we'd still want to ask questions because, you know, while it would prove the existence of an afterlife, or so to say, or maybe the afterlife is in fact an alternate reality, like another timeline which we live on, a separate reality, with different circumstances, I don't know. But the thing which I do want to, you know, oh, fuck me, I've lost my trail of thought completely.
He probably hasn't got the right one. Fuck!
And yeah, as what I was getting at, like I said, it does prove, you know, it would prove that there is an afterlife. Let's just say in like this reality, our time now, you know, we do prove that there is a heaven, that it definitely does exist and it's perfect, you know, just like the Bible and everything says. We don't know that for sure, but let's just say it is. Let's just say it is. You know, or maybe there would be a need for like people like us who do spirit communication, who want to find out more from spirits apart from, you know, what we're able to see, what we're able to know, you know. And I think, you know, a lot of people would take up maybe the chance of being clinically dead and then being shocked back to life just to be able to communicate with their, you know, family members or whatever in a clinical setting. So, you know, they're clinically put to sleep, they die, able to see family again. I mean, it makes you think, if there was somebody, you know, who has passed and you would like to take the chance of, you know, seeing a family member again, knowing you could be brought back, but you've seen them for like 5 minutes and you have to ask the questions about, you know, I would love to ask my dad the questions about, hey, have you met Elvis? Have you seen my grandparents yet? You know, have you met this person? Have you met that person? Are you okay? Are you safe? If I had the opportunity, maybe I would take that chance. But I think there would be a lot of people who would, you know, end up taking their own life. So it does bring up that moral question. While the afterlife would be amazing to know, is it morally right that we should know? Because for me, from what the film portrays, it could be catastrophic. So please let me know. What do you think about these questions down in the comments? I'll be looking forward to hear your thoughts.